Now go back over to live control room. Yep, I can hear me. The stream back up. Gizzards too.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby bumpers.
Now go back over to live control room. Yep, I can hear me. The stream back up. Gizzards too.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby bumpers.
Now go back over to live control room. Is that me? I'm loud. Yep, I can hear me. The stream back up. Gizzards too.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby bumpers.
Now go back over to live control room. Is that me? I'm loud. Yep, I can hear me. The stream back up. Gizzards too.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers, rubber baby bumpers.
Now go back over to live control room. Is that me? I'm loud. Yep, I can hear me. The stream back up. Gizzards too. But I was having so much fun raising my hand, Gizzards too. Was I loud? I turned myself down.
Apparently everybody heard that.
Yeah, that's why I said you get about 10 seconds to figure out who's loud and who's not. Because then it just starts looping over and over and over again on top of itself.
Okay.
That's what we wanted, though, right? We don't want to hear Robbie.
Because we know Robbie's good already.
All right. Yeah, they heard everything a minute ago.
Yeah.
You hit Gizzard Stew.
I think we're online right now, yeah.
I think so, too.
Oh, man, Gizzard Stew.
Hi, everybody.
Going live.
Hi, everybody.
On the air sound check, everybody. What's happening? Dawn from Midori Liquid wants us to know that we're live.
Which one is Mooch?
Yeah, which one's Mooch? I like that question. Hello, Addy Tooney. What up?
Addy Tooney in this house.
Still waiting on that blasted out K fun, but
Oh, man.
Giz, try talking. People are saying you're muted still.
Oh, there he is.
How about now?
John B. Ray Angel,
Now,
what's
can you hear
going
me?
on? Can you hear Gizzard Stew?
Yeah, Giz is trying to talk. Hopefully you guys can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Oh, man. Good times. Good times, Gizzard Stew. Takes us live on the
live sound check.
live sound check, everybody. Who needs to go up? Who needs to go down? Let us know.
let us know in the chat. This is some captivating fucking television.
Live
right here.
sound check.
Better now, Giz.
Okay.
That's what Rob said. Rob Scanlon.
How are the levels?
Giz has sound. Yeah. Who needs to go up? Who needs to go down? This is what we were trying to do.
Is anybody really loud, or
So
does everybody sound pretty good?
Yes.
Let us know.
Yunkel, say something, Yunkel. You've been quiet.
What would you like me to say, Fresh?
I would like you to say just what you said. Now, everybody, too loud.
John Mueller, what's up?
Everyone is good, it says. All right, thank God. Welcome everybody. This is Project Fog. It's 8 o'clock, so we're starting the show.
Finally.
Finally.
Gizzard, none of this is on my script.
Yeah, this is my script right now. What's going on?
Present fresh.
I've been studying this meticulously for 5 minutes. Gizzard Stew. Trying to think of something that you didn't already have written down to ask.
I don't even know why he has us on the show.
I know, right? It should just be a one-on-one.
You think so? Uh-oh.
Gizzard Stew is the fog.
Come in.
Hello?
There he is.
Moochie.
Ta-da!
Muted Mooch.
Why'd you mute him, Gizzard Stew?
Oh, it does it automatically.
Hey guys,
Mooch.
are we live?
We are live.
Okay.
Unmute. There you go. All right. Welcome to Project Fog on Gizzard Stew's channel. Tonight, we have a very special guest indeed, the Battery Mooch. And also with us tonight is the venerable Fresh 03. We also have the resident wire crafter, Yeti's uncle. We have half of the Overdose Vapes crew, Travis. And we also have Robbie Vapes back again. So tonight we have lots of relevant questions for the Battery Mooch, and in hopes of creating a little bit of flow tonight, I'm going to ask a few questions in succession, and then after I'm done with that, then we'll open the general questioning up to the rest of the panelists. And towards the end, hopefully, we'll be able to take a few questions from the chat as well. So, to get rolling tonight, I would like to ask Mooch. Welcome, Mooch, by the way, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. My first question is, can you give us a brief overview of how you came to be our vaping battery guru, and also, is ECF, the Electronic Cigarette Forum, still the best place to find your valuable information?
Well, right now, I have the Mooch page on Facebook. ECF is sort of home base though, but all the links are on Facebook. Excuse me. To get to my blog, add ECF. That's where I post the tables and charts and some other things. Facebook is a good way though to keep up with the daily, not daily, but each release that I come out with, little mentions, alerts, and things like that. Most of them go to either Electronic Cigarette subreddit or Facebook, and then ECF is kind of the base for all the data. Hopefully the website is up soon and everything will be pulled together into one location.
All right. So how did you come to get into, to be put in this position? Can you just share with us?
I don't know. It's a community that if I'm in any position, it's because the community is thinks of it that way. I've, at least from my background, I design high reliability, ruggedized power management electronics. That's what I've been doing since 1992. And a lot of the work that's involved with that is what we call characterization of batteries, determining the characteristics of the batteries that are used with my electronics or that a client of mine might already be using. And the electronics and the batteries are very tightly integrated. The electronics depend on certain characteristics the batteries have, or the batteries they decided to use or are forced to use require certain things from the electronics. So a lot of the work I've been doing for a very long time has been testing the batteries, rating them, determining their limits, destructive testing where I short circuit them or abuse them horribly, and figure out what they can do, what the best solution might be for my clients, or whether their existing solution will work with the electronics I'll design for them. When I started vaping in late March of last year, 2015, I was really pissed off at the ratings that I saw that were out there. A couple of friends of mine who got me into vaping brought me some batteries, fests, and there's something else, I don't remember what. And I was like, this is bullshit. This is preposterous. The ratings they have, it's the people in the community that I circle with, business-wise, just laughing, absolutely laughing at ratings that were on some of these batteries. When I told them, they actually still don't believe me. You show them pictures, and I'm like, no, that's bullshit. That's a troll picture of some kind. And I decided that I already had the equipment. Let me start doing some testing. The vaping community got me off cigarettes fast with the knowledge that they'd given me and helping me choose mods and find juices and get coils and everything else. So I just started testing and found that I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. There was a need for it in the community, and it's just gone whoosh head forward into it. And with the unbelievable donations the community made lately, I've been able to step up in the equipment and significantly increase how much testing I can do, at least in the background, like married testing. I really can't bang out that many more battery tests at any one time, but the scope of what I can cover and the things I can do has grown significantly because of those donations.
Yeah, well, I have to thank you again, because I'm really glad that you chose to devote so much of your time and effort to this community and to keep us informed about. I mean, we've learned just so much from your input, and your godsend that you were around to call some of these people out, some of these companies, because I think without you, we would have had no idea that some of the batteries that they were giving us were completely overrated and unsafe. And
Thanks, guys.
Safety is of the utmost paramount importance when you're using vapor technology products. And so kind of my next question, it has to do with catastrophic battery events. They're one of the greatest fears for most of us. And so let's start tonight by getting the worst case scenarios out of the way, and maybe you could tell us the difference between battery venting and thermal runaway, because as I understand it, there is a difference.
Yeah, they're very different. And generically, they've both been kind of lumped together into venting, but there's a huge difference. And it's kind of important because, well, I'll go into differences first. Venting is something that happens at a fairly low temperature in terms of batteries, 130, 150 Celsius. Sounds really, really hot, but for a battery, that's cold. Venting is just the mechanical release of excess pressure and gas that forms in the battery if you abuse it, if you discharge it too hard. Underneath the top cap of the battery, the top contact, now let's see if I can, underneath that central contact, I can't actually tell if that's in focus or not, but there's something called a venting disc. And that's a pre-scored piece of metal that, if too much pressure forms underneath in the battery, the disc will release and allow that gas to escape. Now that is great. And I think quite a few people have had venting. It can be something as simple as just the fluid seeping out, or it can be kind of energetic, just spraying out. But that's it. There are no flames, there's no smoke. It's more of a physical process. Thermal runaway is the utter and complete destruction of the battery. It can be anything from 3 to 5 rocket nozzles of flames and sparks shooting out if the battery stays intact, but it can often result in bursting of the battery. The crimp gives away, the top of the battery comes out, flames and everything. The organic solvent inside the battery ignites, you have a fireball, shrapnel, joy. That though requires a short circuit. It's almost impossible to reach thermal runaway by merely abusing the battery. And this is something I think is widely misunderstood. You're not going to get it from taking the worst quality, lowest grade 5 amp battery and running out on a mech with a 0.04 build. It's not going to go into runaway. It will vent first, because you cannot build up the temperature quickly enough to get that thing to go into runaway, which happens at a much higher temperature, before the battery will just crack open and vent. So for runaway, you've got to heat it up so fast, so hard, that it hits that runaway temperature, 230, 250 degrees Celsius, before it can even split open. Once runaway starts, then it just keeps going. Exothermic reaction, once it starts, it'll keep going until you put it underwater or it just burns itself out. So for most vapors, if you just go too hard, you can vent a cell. It's got to be way too hot to touch, way above the boiling point of water. But if you're really abusing a battery, especially if it's in a box mod, but even in a tube mod with a very low build, you can get a battery to vent. Either scenario, the battery's ruined. Throw it away. Well, you're definitely going to throw away shrapnel if it goes in the thermal runaway, but even venting, it's just seeping out anything, and you can smell it. If you're not even sure the disc is cracked, if you're looking underneath and it's cracked open, but if it's a little slimy and if you smell something distinctly like pinkman or turpentine, something obviously not right, just throw away the battery. It's vented.
I have a quick follow-up question, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Giz?
So yeah, Giz, is that all right? It's off the script. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is not part of the script.
No.
No.
Do I get more money for this?
When a battery vents, like not runaway, but just venting, but like a catastrophic vent where it's going to spray liquid out, is that liquid going to be at a temperature that could harm somebody?
Yeah. It's when it leaves the battery, the lowest temperature will be at is about 230 Celsius. Excuse me, 130 Celsius. So it's way above the boiling point of water, and it's toxic to boot. It's an organic solvent.
And if it gets on your skin, I mean, you're in big fucking trouble, basically.
Yeah. Essentially, you're spraying yourself with boiling liquid. Now, there's very little of it. There's a fraction of a teaspoon of the stuff. But if in a tube mod, if you've got the positive part of the battery facing the vent holes, there's a chance you could be directly sprayed with the hot liquid. But because there's not a lot of it and cools off quickly, it's the kind of thing where I don't know if anyone's ever dropped something in a pot of boiling water and you get splattered with boiling water. You're like, ow, 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 but it goes away. Just wash it off with soap and water, keep it cool. Classic burn thing, but get the solvent off your skin.
But the chemical adds another layer to the burn, right?
Not to the burn itself, but it is toxic. It's like, think of it as if you got boiling paint thinner on you. It wouldn't be any hotter than water, but leaving it on your skin, just wash it off right away. Soap and water, and then just normal burn type stuff. Certainly, if you got it in your eyes,
you're gonna lose vision if you. The reason I ask is I got a burn on my hand one time. It was a chemical burn, and I got it cool. I had ice on it, but the chemical itself continued to burn down into the muscles of my hand. But that wouldn't happen with a battery.
No, it's no more toxic than paint thinner, but that's toxic. And it wouldn't do any more damage than that. Once you go into thermal runaway, you've got all kinds of other issues. Hydrogen fluoride gas, I mean, that is very bad. In fact, the thing you need in runaway to stop the runaway reaction, water, generates the hydrogen fluoride gas. It'll do it from the atmosphere, but as soon as good thing, you drop a thermal runaway battery into a bucket of water. That's great. Just leave the room, because you're going to have a lot of toxic byproducts from a battery runaway. Usually the best thing to do, venting or runaway, is just drop it and leave. Come back in an hour. If it's still a little bit warm, come back in another hour. Make sure it's dead cold, and then take care of recycle the battery.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, so I was wondering if you could kind of tell us what would be the best way to, or your advice on preventing having a problem in the first place. Just the things that you've run across, the mistakes people will make.
Well, for runaway, don't circuit your battery. The consequences of runaway are so severe. We've all seen the videos, the dude with the pants on fire in the gas station. And you could actually see the 4 rocket nozzles coming out. I could actually tell you can tell whether you had a Samsung with 3 holes in the vent or LG with 4 holes or Sanyo with 5 holes. You just count the rocket nozzles shooting out of the battery. And the woman's purse who burst, and the guy dancing outside the club. I think those in Europe last month. We've seen the results of runaway. Now, that's bad wraps. You've got, what's critical is, you've got in the top of the battery, you can see the black insulating ring and you can see the green wrap going around it. The negative, and it's not too bad, that's all negative. Up on top, though, the biggest problem is that center contact and the ring just around is positive, but the outside ring, that's negative. And it's really, really easy in a mod, and even a charger, when you're putting a battery in and out, you've got a big wide contact there, and the battery, if that contact bridges the center post and the outer ring, you have a short circuit. And if it lasts long enough, namely if you bring it up to a high enough temperature, the threshold of thermal runaway, you can get that battery going to runaway. Once it starts, it's very hard to stop. So keeping your wraps intact, that insulator ring, whether white or black, whether it's a rewrap or an original batteries from Samsung, Sony, LG, I just say keep it in perfect condition. If you're thinking about asking someone if you should rewrap it, rewrap it. It takes 30 seconds. A hairdryer, buy wraps and rings whenever you buy your batteries. That'll stop the short circuit, 99% of the short circuits. I mean, even if you have a battery in your pocket with keys and everything, if the wrap is intact, the other metal you're short circuiting the battery with has to go all the way around the battery. And that's hard. It can be done, but it's hard. But as soon as you expose some of the wrap at the positive end, or damage some of the wrap at the positive end, or God forbid, lose the insulator ring, now just the tiniest touch from a coin or anything, just at the positive end, can set it off into runaway. Venting a battery is easier in a way, but the consequences are a lot less severe. That if you severely abuse a battery, and I mean abuse it, you can get a battery to vent. It's still got to reach, the outside of the battery is going to be above the boiling point of water. It's going to be hot, but you can do it, particularly if you have a really low build. If you're super sub-ohming with a 0.04, the heat that's generated, the heat inside a battery is on all different points of the battery. They're hot spots. So you can heat up a point in there incredibly hot. It may even start thermal runaway there. But then if you remove the current, it might snuff it out. But it can be very, very hot at one point in the battery, but the outside of the battery is just warm. And the greater the amount of current you draw, the greater the difference between these little points and the outside of the battery, because it's just heating up so quickly inside. So you still have to pay attention, even if you're not worried about venting, or if you're like, oh, I'll never heat up a battery to the boiling point of water. If you're drawing enough current, the inside of the battery is much, much hotter than the outside, and the battery will vent. But really, it's abuse will lead to venting. Don't go much above. Well, I have an MVA rating, maximum vaping amp rating. I say don't go above if you're worried about the mod ever malfunctioning or an accidental button press. I think it's like 25 amps for a 25R. And it varies for different batteries. 40 is the highest. You can vape at 50, 60 amps if you want to, with some batteries, actually with a lot of batteries. But just understand that if you ever accidentally press the button in a Mac, or if you have them auto-firing with a regulated mod, you could end up venting the battery. Or if you decide to chain vape and you just guessed wrong what the temperature of the battery might be. Mechanical mods are awesome for so many things, but they pull a lot of the heat out and distribute a lot of the heat from the outside of the battery. The inside of the battery, though, can still be very hot. So it can be deceptive just how hot it is inside.
Good answer. Just the last question that I'm going to do off of the script is that I know that you were acquiring some new equipment recently, and it's gonna allow you to do testing on LiPo battery packs. And as we are seeing more and more mods come out with this battery technology, I wonder if you would tell us if you've begun to test them, what are some of the early results, and maybe tell us some of the big differences between LiPo battery packs and regular LiPo batteries.
Regular LiPo batteries or like the regular cylindrical
Like the batteries that we use, the cylinder.
the regular lithium-ion batteries.
Right.
Everyone get ready. That's an hour-long question. But let's see if we can shorten it down to a couple of key points. Excuse me. I have started some LiPo testing. In fact, I was just talking, actually most of the day was spent talking about some of the results with a few people and getting in touch with some of the manufacturers. I hope everyone knows that things like 100C rated LiPos, 70C, 50C rated LiPos, it's ridiculous. You know, the Maxam's 1800 mAh 100C battery, that means it's rated for 180 amps. That will melt the wire connected to the battery. So we know those ratings can't be held to be true. But, you know, where does the performance lie? Right now, I'm seeing better performance in the 18650s. And this is preliminary testing. I'm just going through a few packs just to figure out what testing will I be doing, where are the limits, essentially determining the methodology I'll use to really start going through them. Their internal resistance is lower than 18650s, but not fundamentally so. You will get better performance. They'll run cooler than 18650. But things to realize with LiPos is they are what I call brittle. They're very sensitive to temperature. And we know they're incredibly sensitive to physical abuse. The flat pack LiPos. LiPo is really just a very abused term for a physical construction of the battery. It's sometimes used for the chemistry, but it can be anything. I mean, they're LiPos, cylindrical LiPos, 18650s, 18500s, in all the internal battery mods that we use. Almost all of them are LiPos. Quote, LiPos, lithium cobalt chemistry, the really volatile, nasty stuff. The flat pack LiPos that we're starting to use now in 2S, 3S, or 4S packs, or 2 or 3 batteries put in series to go higher and higher in voltage, like the Vape Nomad mods, Mad Modders mods, and others that are out there. Often use a 3S, a 3-cell LiPo pack, and those beautifully stacked flat pack batteries. Now they'll have maybe half the internal resistance, which is what causes the voltage sag. Every time you take a pull, you can see the meter drop down, come back up again. That's the internal resistance of the battery causing power loss, causing a voltage drop. That's less in a LiPo. But because of their temperature sensitivity, you may have low resistance, which means you can push them harder without heating up, but they're more sensitive to heat. So where does that start to balance out? And that's what I can't answer yet. If the sensitivity to heat is greater than the advantage given you by the lower resistance, then LiPos are worse than 18650s. Now, I don't think that's true, because we've all seen the people who use LiPos a lot have seen some incredible performance from them. But it does limit how much of a return we can get on LiPos, and may have us focus down and not be able to say, hey, LiPos are awesome, but may go, oh, well, hold on. LiPos from A, B, and C are awesome. Everybody else is a crap. And I've got 8 of the 1800 mAh LiPos. I'll be going through those for the first tests. Then I'm stepping up to 2250s and then 3000s. Anything, 3000's already a monster pack, the 3S 3000 mAh battery. And anything smaller than 1800 starts getting into the batteries from the Chinese mods, 900 to 1300. And there are very few options for replacements other than the battery the manufacturer used. And so I don't think I'll be testing them, because if you can only use one battery, you're stuck with it. How it performs really doesn't matter. That's the battery you have to use. But if there's a call for it, or if more replacements start showing up, I'll test some of the smaller ones. But right now, it's really starting to determine how much better are LiPos, where are they better, how can we use them, and where do the warning signs start? You're really not supposed to, right now, the temperature limit for LiPo is around 60 degrees Celsius, 140 Fahrenheit. It's about 75 or 80 for long cycle life for 18650s, and 100 before damage starts. which is where that 60 degrees Celsius mark for lipos are. So there's a big difference in how hot we can get them. A 60 degree Celsius lipo pack might be barely warm on the outside because it's wrapped in some very effective insulation, which keeps them hot and keeps them from cooling off. So all these things I want to test. Now, where does the damage start? How easy are they to damage? Some of my preliminary tests, I've been able to fry some lipos, fundamentally damage them at 25 amps, 30 amps. And these are lipos at least rated over 100 amps. But they don't tell you pulse, and they don't tell you continuous, a lot of them. So it's a lot of testing to do. And I made 2 more orders for lipos today because just my casual test shown me I need to dive a lot further into it. I need to compare multiple packs from a couple of manufacturers and things like that. It's going to be a long winter.
Yeah, I would imagine that there's a lot of different kinds of those cells out there too. I mean, just were you focusing on using a few specific ones, or?
Well, I picked there'll be the Thunder Powers, Venoms, Zippy Max. Thunder Powers like 4 different lines. I've forgotten the names. Max Amps definitely. I wanted to cover everything from the $15 packs up to the at least for the 1800s. Let's start there, price point. So $15 to $60. And because a lot of things we might find out, often we'll find, there is a best performing one that gives, that's incredible, but it's really, really expensive. Maybe you can get 90% of the performance at half the price. And that's something I want to try to find also with my testing. If Max Amps is the best pack, well, that's great, but I'm paying $55 plus shipping for a single 1800 mAh pack. Well, if the Thunder Power Rampage pack is half the price, but almost the same performing, wow, for a lot of people, that's the better pack. But there are also differences in sizes. We're not dealing with like 18650, where they're all pretty close to the same size, less than a millimeter apart in size. There can be a half-inch to 1-inch size difference between different 1800 mAh packs. And actually, that won't help to bring a bunch out. You can believe me. And so someone might go, ooh, half the price, almost the same performance, but a half-inch bigger? Okay, that's useless to me. And so for the first time, weight and dimensions are going to be a big part of my testing, because that's going to have to factor in to how good that cell is. Whether I can include that as part of like an overall score, I don't know. Like I may score the performance and then just have the dimensions. Or I might say, hey, no, you've got this performance score with this many cubic inches, some kind of multiplier that gives you, boom, a net score of so and so, just to be able to scan up and down. But different people have different priorities. Some will be performance no matter what. Others will be, no, it's got to fit in a B box or G box equivalent from Hammond. And, I can't have a big pack. So a lot of these things I'll be determining. I'll be coming out fairly soon with just some preliminary results and a few of my thoughts and a few questions to the community to say, what do you need? What would you like? Where are your priorities for lipo? And I'll be talking to a couple of the modders out there, the box modders, and seeing what their thoughts are and things they'd like to see done with testing.
Are most of those batteries coming out of the RC car realm, or where are they using these batteries?
I'd say all of them, at least originally. Manufacturers may be saying, whoa, okay, yeah, let's. They all complain at 2250 miles too big and 1800 miles too small. Let's do a 2000 mile for the vaping community. I'm not aware of that yet. Like I get Max Amps from Max Amps, Thunder Power, I think for Thunder Power, and from Hobby King, and then Hobby King, several other different ones. And Hobby King serves everybody, but primarily, the radio control community, boats, planes, cars, etc.
All right. Well, I want to open up the questioning to the rest of the panel for sure. If anyone would like to go ahead, go ahead.
I've got a couple from the audience, actually, from chat.
Cool. Hi, Rob. How you doing?
Good. How are you? It's good to finally meet you face to face.
Yeah. I figured, like, whoa, I showed up and I'm like, oh, questions. Okay. Not even what am I vaping? Wow.
Well, we'll get to that in just a second,
Yeah.
actually, because we're actually all curious what you're vaping on. Although it looks like we can kind of tell a little bit from the poll you just took.
Yeah.
But Addy Tooney wants to know, do you actually own a comic book store?
Yes, that is true. My alter ego is Stuart from Big Bang Theory, and
Yes.
it's awesome. It's a good day job. It pays the bills, but they don't know batteries. They don't appreciate batteries. So at night I put on the Mooch cape and I test batteries. Addy?
Awesome.
I'm going to remember that question, Addy.
Let's see. Russell Vapes wants to... Oh, no. That's a different one. Rob Scanlon wants to know, where do you recycle or dispose of vented batteries?
Most of the big chain electronics stores, Best Buy, places like that, I think even Radio Shack have a recycle bin, but the home improvement stores, Home Depot, and some of the others also have battery recycling bins. Just at least wrap the top portion, at least a couple of layers around the top, because the rest of the battery is negative. But at least for 18650s, 18350s, wrap up the top so it cannot discharge touching anything else. Don't discharge them in salt water. Don't try to do anything to them. Just wrap them up. If they did vent, if they're covered with that crap, drop in a Ziploc or something like that. After you wrap them with tape, drop in a Ziploc just so you're not getting anything you have. But make sure they've reached room temperature. Last thing you want to do is with a battery that's just come out of thermal runaway and may have some unreacted stuff there, is wrap it up in something so the heat can build up again and start up in reaction again. It's just leave it overnight and then take it to one of those shops to recycle.
Perfect. I got a bunch more questions, but I'll let someone else ask a couple first.
I was curious, you're a first-hand account from Mooch. What is the gnarliest reaction you've gotten out of a battery?
Several in full runaway for my clients. Now, vaping battery, I've never brought to runaway. It's just no reason. I know what happens. I know how to get it there, and it's just rare. We just never want to have that happen. Don't short circuit the battery. But for clients, I'm paid to do that. It's part of they want to know what kind of containment they need, the degree of venting they might need, and the degree of damage that'll happen to what is being mounted and stuff like that. And there's also, I do preliminary testing, particularly for the government groups and the military. You have to quantify the damage. And so they'll go, look, we're not going to use lithium cobalt, LiPo chemistry batteries, but hey, we have these A123s. It's the safest chemistry. What does that really mean? For our application, how bad is it going to be? And so I will short circuit them and you show them the damage and what happens. I think the worst one, two of them in two very different ways. One was an A123 26650 that I was discharging at 400 amps. That was it was going to be pulsed at 400. So we had to assume circuit failure. It was like a 30-something millisecond pulse, 0.03 second pulse. It can do that. Big voltage drop, but it can do it. We ended up adding ultracapacitors to handle that. But now what we have to do is assume circuit failure, and we have to discharge it at 400 amps continuously. That was interesting. That chemistry doesn't go into full runaway, but it does what's called jelly rolling. And because the whole thing is a spiral construction. And if you think of your cinnamon bun or a jelly roll, how it's spiraled up with the jelly in between, or those things you flick and it uncurls. Well, what it does is it unspools into this long snake at a very high temperature. And I have a 50 cal ammo can lined with ceramic cloth with you flip the cover, you do not latch the cover shut. Put the cover down, a little bit of an opening, 4-inch fan with aluminum ducting that comes out that can flick on if it goes in the runaway. Well, that 26650 shot out its contents so hard, it opened the top of my can and ejected itself into my living room. This was way back before I had a separate dedicated test bench. Essentially, it was for destructive testing. Which was built, interestingly, right after this event. This is when I would bring out this what I call the firebox. for this thing. And I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 feet long at hundreds of degrees Celsius, just flying around the living room. And that was interesting. The other one was, and I'm trying to remember, it was an 18650, and I don't remember whose, but it was lithium cobalt, lipochemistry, and short-circuited it directly. It had just copper, half-inch copper rods with 2-inch welding cable that he used a 500 amp contactor, and he just boom, and you can just hear it wham close. And you do that, and then you step back and you wait to see what happens. And this one, it was the most violent I've ever heard, because I had the fan already running because I knew what I was doing, so I wasn't worried about that. But it just 15, 20 times slammed off the inside. It tore up the ceramic cloth, everything. It was the most violent runaway I've ever seen. And these are the ones that I think we see hints of it. Like there was one video of a fellow early at the beginning of this year who was firing a tube mod, and you saw him put it up to his ear in a shop, and then it exploded. Thank God, not in his mouth. Exploded next to his ear, and the bottom part of the mech flew across the room. When it hit the wall of the shop across the room, that was enough of a shock to the battery, and then the battery exploded into the fireball from the solvent. But all this was happening inside my box. It's runaway is exciting, and then the smell. No matter what, I don't care what venting you have. It's 2 days of just gagging when you come back in the room again. I hate destructive testing.
I think my favorite part of that story was that the ending was that it was in your living room.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us fucking expected that.
Yeah, because the test bench was filled. I have the test bench in the other room. It was completely filled with stuff that was operating. And I'm like, well, I could set this up. I've got the firebox. The hose gets collapsed down, well, not down to this. It collapses down to like 4 feet long. And it's just something I brought in and out when destructive testing is needed, because it's only done 3-4 times a year. I wasn't going to take up the room on the bench to keep that set up. But all that changed. Now it's a separate partial bench, half bench, and the setup's there. Still the same firebox. To be able to do the testing, and I've been doing a lot more of it for a particular client. It's for a MotoGP racing team, and the temperatures involved, the vibration, everything else, they're going to need destructive testing.
Well, thank you for doing this, so that we don't have to do this in our front room.
Right. Well, for the vaping stuff, I'm not doing any destructive testing. I'm just going to say don't short circuit it.
Yeah.
And the venting's easy. That's just a little bit messy and stuff. Though there are a couple of batteries on the market now who are claiming enhanced safety, and trying to think of ways to test that. So the rig may end up getting used for something to do with vaping.
So I have a question. What's your favorite juice? What kind of juice do you vape right now?
Well, right now I'm doing. I'm actually trying my vapes. Hit that donut. I've got Razzle today, which I like Razzle, but it wears me out. There's just a lot of flavor there, and so I rotate. But I don't have an all day vape. Never have. I might bounce between 6 juices in a day. On there, and at least now for winter, taking some of the more layered custards and things like that, and more bakery and holiday kind of flavors, I call it. But for summer, I like the fruits, the light mints. I often do just 70 VG with the tiniest touch of menthol in it, just as kind of a palate cleanser, because if it's 90-something degrees.
It has a little bit of sweetness to it anyways from the VG.
Yeah. And it's great if it's hot as hell. The last thing I want is for me, is I'll bring down the wattage and everything in summer. Now I just want I've got this hit that donut. Actually I'm doing it like about 75 watts. The Dominican V2 with a Nobunaga.
I love Dominican. Oh my god, that's so nice.
It's just a brick.
Yeah.
And love the Nobunaga, or I'll use the Tokugawa in. Not rip out the cable. E-Fusion Duo.
Yeah, beautiful.
With the Tokugawa, and just bounce back and forth, or the other one which I've been playing with, which I have to re-whip, but is a Bellis just in a tree box.
I love tree boxes. Those
And
are awesome.
just a single twisted 28 coil in here, and this is what I use with the palate cleanser on there, or a little baby mini volt with a. I put the top back on. It's kind of taken apart here because I have to re-wick it, but Nobunaga Mini with a mini volt if I ever put it back together. But I have to wick
I
that
keep
up.
the Nobunaga because it's a good value.
Yeah, there's great stuff out there now, value-wise.
Totally, absolutely.
Yeah, so otherwise, but you know, Griffin Vapes has got some great fruit stuff. Look at that. Let's see, Casadega's Cannoli B1. I really like. The rest of Mike Vape's stuff, I think, is Peach Fuzz.
Yeah.
Which I really like. Adores Pure Peach and Hazy Custard. There's just so many because I'm always bouncing around. It's just little box of juice all over the place and mods. You know, as I'll reach for one and you know, maybe 10 minutes with any particular flavor, and then you know, I'll go out somewhere else to get email and I'll grab a different flavor, something like that. My palate just wears out really quickly.
I'm the same exact way. Like for every situation, I want a different flavor. Like after dinner, you know what I mean? When I first wake up in the morning, right before I go to bed, I got like 20 mods sitting around all the time, different juices, just like the same way. So.
And I never do like, I don't vape when I eat. And I found, I was thinking like coffee vapes. I was thinking, oh, that's incredible. It'd be awesome. And I found out I haven't tried Mike's Glory Hole yet, Mike Vape's Glory Hole yet, but I found I don't like coffee vapes because I'd rather have a coffee and a bakery vape or a dessert vape with it. For me, that's perfect. Putting it all in one for me removes a lot of what I like about coffee. That you know, the hot sip of coffee, particularly in some of the weather that's coming up. And just pick a dessert vape to go with it.
Speaking of weather, I had a question for you. Could you give me any ideas on the best way to tackle vaping when it's below zero?
I timed that wrong. Yeah, it's for discharging. If you like, let's say you leave your mod in the car overnight or something like that, and you come back, you know, it's 10 below Fahrenheit. Excuse me, Celsius. 10 below Fahrenheit would be. Actually, no, that's not too bad. Never mind.
10 below
It's
Fahrenheit is not out of the question around here.
Yeah. I was thinking that's not as it's extreme as I thought it was. It's Tuesday. I'm already fried. I haven't shaved. I haven't slept. It's for discharging. Let's say you leave it out overnight in the car. Just don't go ripping away at 130 watts right away. You know, work your way up a little bit. Start at half power. Just for a couple of pulls. The battery's going to warm up, and you're going to get significantly better performance. The resistance of the battery skyrockets when it's cold. So if you start too high on a regulated mod, odds are it's just the voltage is going to drop so hard, so fast that you're not going to be able to vape with it. In a mech, you're just going to get terrible performance, and you're damaging the battery, especially if it's below freezing. So start slow. Never, ever charge a battery when it's cold, below freezing. Just bring it inside for an hour, let it warm up a bit. You can damage the battery. It can be dangerous if it's too cold and you're charging too fast. I don't have hard numbers for you because it depends on the battery, the temperature, and all kinds of things. But otherwise, I'd say, you know, even if the battery's cold, if it's in an inside pocket or something, you know, 40-degree cold, that's okay. It's that 20-degree Fahrenheit, 10-degree Fahrenheit kind of thing where you can cause some problems by vaping with it, especially if you're charging with it.
So if your VG is frozen solid, you might be looking at problems.
Probably, yeah. A little put on the inside pocket action first, down the pants, something for a few minutes before you start vaping with it.
That's a keister steep situation, Gizzards too.
There it is.
Especially if you've got your angel wings on and you're shoveling the sidewalk like Mark Fagan was doing yesterday. So, I don't know if you guys saw that post.
Yeah, I saw that meme.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a slot right there. You can keep the mod.
Mooch, I got a couple for you.
Shoot.
First of all, Greg Paschek says he loves your shirt. I I'm curious about the recent announcement that I've heard about. I haven't read the actual document or whatever, but it said that some of the major manufacturers of 18650s and all the cells that we use are going to put like a major boycott on individual cells, as in they're not going to sell to vapors. They're not going to sell outside of packs, basically, is what they're saying.
Right.
Is there any truth to that or any validation to that?
That's not news. From day one, all over the data sheets, over anything that the industry uses, not us, but the engineers and everyone else, is you cannot use these cells outside the battery pack. They're not sold to anybody outside the battery pack. They've never been sold to vapors. They've never been sold to the RC community. They've tolerated it because there hasn't been a downside to it. We're a tiny market, so not getting a lot of money, but we'll just keep doing this until we hit the news, until people started setting their pants on fire, until people started short-circuiting them and generating all this news, you know, using an Atlantis tank on a hypertop mech mod and blowing out all their teeth when the mod exploded, when they short-circuited the battery. Mm-hmm. That draws our attention. For a tiny market, to have the lawsuits, more than once I've been contacted by attorneys, you know, wondering, you know, here's a battery. Who makes this battery? Because we want to bring the manufacturer in on the lawsuit because we think it's a defective battery. And we get into a whole lot of discussions about that. So we've never been allowed, and they've never wanted us or anybody to use these things outside a battery pack. What they're doing now, though, is they're taking the stuff. You know, only engineers used to specify batteries, and the companies would buy them. But now the end users buying them for flashlights, for vaping gear, stuff like that. So LG, Samsung, Sony are realizing that the warnings in the data sheets aren't being seen by anybody. And they've got to put it someplace where they can start covering their ass in terms of lawsuits, namely have the end consumer see these warnings so they can be covered mostly by the lawsuits. I don't think any of this is going to be a change in distribution of purchase anything from batteries. I still think Illum, Encon, IMR batteries, and other non-vaping dedicated websites will still be able to buy it. The flashlight users and others will still be able to get them. And there's always the secondary market, the gray market, where Makita buys 100,000 BTC4s for a manufacturing run of battery packs for electric drills, hand drills. Right. And they use 90,000 of them. They don't want that other 10,000 there until they do another run of that model. So they will sell it off to somebody else who auction them or resell them to somebody else, who then will sell them to IMR or someone. And I don't mean to say any of these companies deal with this market. IMR may buy directly just from the manufacturers, but we'll sell it to maybe a vaping vendor, related distributor or something, who will sell to the shops or to some of the online vendors, and we'll get it that way. That's always going to be available. There's always going to be overrun and excess inventory. Since March or so, when Sony's do not use outside battery packs warnings were attached to their batteries, we've had no shortage, no lack of availability of VTC batteries. Now, LG is showing up with their warnings, but think about it. If LG batteries are showing up in the vaping community with the warning, that warning's not stopping us from getting the batteries.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to point out. I got brand new VT4s, and they all say not to use outside of a pack.
So it's some vendors might go, whoa, we just don't even want to consider the concept of LG calling us and saying, so we're just not going to carry LG anymore? Maybe. But it's really, it's the same business with just the warnings put in a place that we can see now versus just in the data sheet. I don't know how it's all going to shake out. Samsung is supposed to be adding warnings. If I was Samsung, I would sure as hell be adding warnings. Panasonic and Sanyo, we don't use as many of their cells, excuse me, batteries, because of they only have a couple with high enough ratings for most of the vapors. But they might add it too. It costs money to add these warnings. So it has to be a real reason for them to do it. It seems like they're adding it just at the end of the line. But to modify an existing production line, that's a commitment. on there because there's multiple countries, multiple plants involved, and you just don't do that and then sell the batteries. You've got to retest them all, unless they're only doing that to certain batteries, which they know might be released to a secondary market or to the vaping community. So right now, I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think the thing maybe to worry about is how vendors might respond, even though it's not really an issue. They may decide just not to carry it. But I think for the community as a whole, we'll be able to get them, even though maybe your favorite vendor or someone else's favorite vendor may decide to stop carrying them because of that warning.
Right.
What I should address is nothing in the batteries changed. So there's nothing they've changed in those batteries to make them unsafe for vapors. They've always been unsafe for us.
Yeah.
So you've always had to use caution with lithium-ion batteries. So the battery itself, the same. They just added the warning as a CYA, cover your ass kind of thing.
Yeah. I just heard that there was a rather large stink made, and I guess that they were
getting a lot of messages regarding that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sony was sending out letters like 6 months ago or something that I remember.
Yeah, and they're saying, no, you can't do this. And everyone went, well, okay. And then they went out and bought the batteries anyway.
Yeah, now we're getting new Sonys.
There we go. So it's important for the companies to show intent, and show intent by putting these warnings on, intent that these should not be used in an unapproved manner. Because no matter what's in the data sheet, if they know vapors are using them and they don't issue a warning, they're liable for damages if the battery hurts somebody and they determined it was somehow a defect in the battery or something like that. Or at least they can be brought in a lawsuit, and Sony can't say, oh yeah, we kind of knew, but we didn't want to warn anybody. That sounds terrible in the courtroom. But if you say every single battery has a warning not to use it like that, they're fine. They're going to get off. They can't be touched. So it makes a lot of business sense to have these warnings there. I'm not condoning it, but
Right.
I can understand the business point from it. They're horrified by vapors. Absolutely horrified by what we do with batteries.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we made these batteries for vacuum cleaners. What the hell are you guys doing?
Exactly. The VTC5A was made for vacuum cleaners. Right on the data sheet.
Pulsing it at 60 watts and shit, or amps.
Yeah. So I talk to people, who I deal with in different communities, different industries. I mentioned this earlier. They laugh. They just laugh because they do not believe it. I tell them, like the Samsung 25R, which I used before I started vaping, it's a popular battery, and that's a 5 amp battery for everybody else. They might pulse it at 12 to 15 amps, and that's like, whoa. And I tell them, no, that 20 amp rating, that's the starting point in the vaping community. That's where they still, okay, minimum is 20 amps, and we're going to go up from there. And they don't believe it. They laugh at it, it's just kind of a running joke for them. And I tell them, yeah, they quote that 100 amp pulse number all the time, and that's when they start freaking out and getting mad, because it's not 100 amp pulse rating. It's the emergency one time only capability of the battery that's used to size the protection system. It has nothing to do with the battery and what it can do. It just means it won't explode.
0.003 seconds.
Yeah. We guarantee it not to explode.
Yeah.
That's it. It's damaged all to hell. It's not a rating because they don't tell you time between pulses, the length. They do tell you length of the pulse. They don't tell you time between the pulses, things like that. That are really important. So that's when they kind of foam at the mouth and they're doing what? And things like that. And just a couple of things on the news and a legal department for a company who are already very risk averse and unauthorized use, averse are just like, whoa, we need these warnings. But right now, I'd say nothing to worry about.
Cool.
I got another question from chat. Giancarlo wants to know, here's a mech mod, and it has vent holes at the top. And then some of the other mech mods have venting through the button or in the bottom. So his question is, which is better, to have the vent holes at the top or bottom, and I would think it would depend upon wherever the holes are. Put your positive on that end of the mech mod. What say ye?
I would always default to what the manufacturer recommends for the mod. If they say either end, it's not going to hurt to put the positive end of the battery near the vent holes. But only because I don't know the consequences of not following. Shut up! Beeping charges. I don't know which mods might have a consequence or not because the shape of the contact. If you've got an especially fat contact, you flip the battery, it's a really fat contact, you have a damaged wrap. Every time you touch the battery to the fat contact with a damaged wrap, you're short-circuiting it. So I can't just blanket say, it's okay to flip it, but assuming it is okay electrically, safety-wise, to flip it, put the positive near the holes, but a couple things to consider. Battery venting it's not much of an event where you need holes, even the tiniest little bit of an air leak, and maybe just even the volume of air that's inside the mech that was airtight, which none of them are, is enough to contain, or excuse me, to not be an issue with the pressure that's released from a venting battery. There's just not much gas there. So it's never going to, venting's not going to bulge the battery out where, seals off the tube. And now, let's say the gas coming off the top can't get around it to the holes at the bottom. I don't think venting's just ever going to do that. And if it goes into runaway, no amount of holes you have, and it doesn't matter where the battery's facing, your mod's probably going to burst, or probably going to break. But because I can't say for sure that, there's the one in a million scenarios where maybe in thermal runaway, the battery did seal and only burst because of this and this and this and this and this happened. But if it reversed the battery, that wouldn't have happened. So I'd say if electrically you can do it, safety-wise you can do it, flip it. It won't hurt. It might not. It won't hurt, at least in terms of the venting and stuff. It might hurt in terms of what the mod expects and stuff like that. But right now, for at least in terms of the battery's concerned, I don't see it makes much of a difference. You don't need it for venting, and it won't help for runaway.
So what I'm hearing is that venting is not as important as people have said. As far as on a mech mod, because you remember back in the day, Todd calling the Manhattan V1 a pipe bomb. Basically what you're saying is that that's really not ever going to be an issue because if it goes into runaway for venting.
Right, but I think everybody else, I think everybody else though uses venting for uses the term venting for thermal runaway, and
but
so
even in that case, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's still a pipe bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now that we've said pipe bomb,
but flipping the battery, flipping the battery,
NSA is watching.
Flipping the battery, for me, my thoughts are it's just not going to make enough of a difference. Those 4 little holes. If you've ever seen, look closely at the videos of the violence and what happens, because you can see in some of these videos the jets of flame coming out of the vent holes of the mod, a tube mod, and it still explodes because the threads give away. Because all you have to do is, you don't have to rip off 20 threads. All you have to do is expand the tube of the mod a little bit with some pressure. Now all the threads just give away and it just falls out. Because you'll see pictures of the mods that have exploded. If you look at the threads are intact. They're not all sheared. The tube just expanded out to the point where the top just went, whoop, or the bottom just popped out, fell out essentially from the pressure.
And you're saying that no amount of vent holes is going to save that? Is going to
maybe,
stop that from happening?
Maybe the AR-15 mod, which is more holes than mod. On that, and I was actually talking about this, someone recently going, hey, it'd be kind of interesting to do like a carbon fiber spiderweb mod, just enough to make the mod hold together, and you run wires, some 12-gauge wire down through the spiderweb for it, but these have it completely open, so it can just, do its thermal runaway thing without exploding, and it'd be a neat thing to look at. And it cools the battery, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think so, but because I can't say, and because I haven't tested, I'd say, if it's okay with the mod, reverse the battery and then just keep your wraps intact, and because then you never have to worry about it. there's some Delrin lined ones. I forgot the one that was it the broadside and the V-God with the Delrin tubes inside. Things like that are fantastic. Then you just have to worry about the end.
The broadside's fucking amazing. So
It's on my list. Well, actually, there are a bunch of mechs on my list.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll make enough money. There's none to buy now, but I buy in bursts, like every 6 months. I kind of hold up and just go, you just get a big bunch of stuff in, and then I don't buy anything except juice the 6 months, and then I just buy a big bunch of stuff.
Are you ready for a question from chat that's way over my technical? It's way over my head.
Go for it.
Okay.
If I can find my juice.
Robert Cromwell asks, in your battery test, you use a dynamic constant current load regardless of battery voltage? Question mark. If
Yes.
so, then the voltage drop would be less with a fixed resistance load? Question mark.
Yes. Yeah, what happens, Mr. Cromwell, what happens is I do constant current discharging for the continuous current and for the pulse current. When you use a mechanical mod, that's a constant resistance load, namely the load, it's a resistor, the coil. And as you discharge the battery, the current, as the voltage goes down, the current goes down, basic Ohm's law. But in a regulated mod, because you have a fixed wattage, if I'm bringing down the voltage of the battery, I have to bring the current of the battery up to compensate. Because the wattage has to stay the same. It's at 75 watts and the voltage is going down, I have to bring the current up. So for mechs and unregulated, it gets easier for the battery as the voltage drops. But for regulated, that's mechs and unregulated, for regulated, it gets harder for the battery. The current goes up as the discharge proceeds. Constant current is sort of in the middle. The current from the battery is always the same. It's an industry standard, so I use that because that allows direct comparison to the results in Samsung, Sony, LG, Panasonic, and Sanyo. And as the standard, the most equipment is set up for it. I'm most familiar with it, so it's easiest for me. But if I was going to simulate exactly how a mech was going to operate, I would have to do constant resistance discharging where the current went down, namely it got easier on the battery. And for regulated, you have to do the sound. For regulated, it gets harder on the battery. I pick constant current because that's in the middle of the two discharges. Now, does that represent exactly how we use batteries? No. But since it's in between the two ways we use the batteries, the results are actually fairly close for unregulated and fairly close for regulated. But the biggest reason is, and the biggest thing for my test is, it's not going to simulate the way you vape, or you, and especially not you. What it does is it allows direct comparison of the relative performance of each battery. Because there's so many different ways of vaping, from tootle puffing at 12 watts to monster pulls at 2.5 kilowatts. We can't simulate that in testing. And, from 1 second to maybe 10-second pulls. So what we have to do is we set up a consistent testing methodology that lets you compare the performance of the batteries. You can pick the best performing one without it being tested to the way you use it, but having it being tested against all the others in ways that close to simulating. The continuous current tests are for safety and for ratings for comparing batteries. The pulse tests are for performance, voltage drop, etc., to directly compare batteries. And I might have answered this question, I'm not sure.
I got a few more questions if you don't mind. They're actually all relating to married batteries. I'm going to start with John Carlos.
Oh, no.
So, can married or paired batteries be used both in parallel and in series, or do you have to get a separate set of batteries for each mod, I guess I would say?
It's a good question. Married batteries are configuration and mod independent. Any set of mad batteries? I've got green syndrome. Any pair of married batteries can be used in, sorry, Nick, at any rate. Can be used in any mod, and so they're not married to the mod, and they're not married to configuration. So if you got a pair of batteries, you can use them in series or parallel, and you can use them regulated, unregulated, anything. They're married to each other. They're completely ignorant of what's going on outside of them.
Okay. The next question in that same sort of context would be, this is actually a question I have, and maybe, if there's something you don't feel like answering, no big deal, but do you know of any chargers that you would recommend to stay away from that unmarry batteries?
None that I know that unmarry a battery. Chargers have gotten pretty good. The circuitry is so inexpensive, almost anyone can do a decent charger. I'm assuming you're not using Trustfire chargers or things like that. But Xtor, Nightcores, eFests, SkyRC, Opus, like the new Dragon, Xstar Dragon, and things like that, they've all gotten pretty good. They all bring them up to close to the same voltage, which is good enough. Safety-wise, they all seem to be pretty good. Maybe some are worse in terms of the springs and the contacts, but I'm not seeing safety issues, and you won't unmarry. If you had loads of free time and you're spectacularly concerned about this, you can charge each battery one at a time in the same slot, but now the first battery is 8 hours behind the second battery, so you've got to go back and top them all off a couple of times, and 3 days later you have charged batteries. It's not worth it. Just not worth it. The worst charge I've ever seen was like maybe 80.08 volts off for each battery, and that might be a 10% difference in capacity. Boy, if there was aged batteries and you're really abusing them at 40 amps, yeah, you might have a problem. But that was a piece of crap charger that I had thrown around the apartment, literally, and abused for days. And I'm just not seeing it with the chargers, any kind of worry on them. Just put them in the slots. It doesn't matter if you charge them at different rates either. A lot of them, you maybe have 3 batteries, and you put 2 in like the match slots and one in the third slot, and 2 of them get charged at 0.375 and one of them gets charged at like 0.75. That's okay. Just wait till they're all done. Being fully charged is more important than almost anything else. They stay married because they're all brought up to 4.20. If you stop with one, maybe at 4.1, 4.15, or even 4.2, but you don't wait till it fully saturates at 4.2, that one now has 10, 15% less capacity, and is going to drop in voltage much faster than the other ones, effectively unmarrying the batteries. So bring them all to the same fully charged point, and that essentially remarries them each time you charge them.
Okay, and then I guess in that same token, is there any mods that you know of that would unmarry batteries?
Any mod without balanced charging.
Not without, like, not even charging, but while you're using it, where it drains, let's say, and I'm actually talking about one in particular that I've had some experience with, and that's through low 2 out of 3. And I'm not talking about using it in 2 battery and 3 battery mode. I'm talking in 3 battery mode. I've noticed that my batteries are always off when I put them on the charger after using it in that mod, even though they've been topped up every time.
Okay.
I've had the same triple set of married batteries throughout the entire course of that mod, but for some reason, every time they go on the charger, there's usually one that's a good 0.3, 0.4, or 0.03, 0.04 away from the other ones.
Okay.
I've had the same problem using a rouleau, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what's really important to remember is married batteries have nothing to do with batteries being matched to each other. There's the batteries we get from the vendors are randomly picked and randomly thrown together. It could be one batch could be 2 years old, the other one could be last week. They're not matched in any way. Even if you get batteries in the same batch, they're not matched anyway. Every single battery has different capacity, a different internal resistance, and a different what we call leakage current. And if you leave a battery alone, it discharges on its own. Very low, 0.0001 amps, like 10 to 100 microamps. But it will discharge battery. But if there's a difference in that leakage, just putting 3 batteries on the shelf and coming back in 6 months, they're going to be 3 different voltages. The different capacities, which means one will end up at a lower voltage than the other, and the different internal resistances, which only matters when you're like looking at a display. Like a Dominican, if I fire it, one battery will always come down below the other. But if I wait half an hour, and look, they're exactly the same voltage. It's that internal resistance which pulls one down further than the other one. All those work together when you're using a battery to unmatch them, or excuse me, not unmatch them, to give them different voltage down at the bottom when you've discharged them a bunch. That's expected, that's okay. For the battery packs that I design battery management systems for, all we do is make sure the lowest one doesn't drop below 2 volts, and there's just no damage. Once you bring it back up, they're all charged at 4.2 again, essentially all balanced. Think of 3 different sizes. If you got 2 or 3 batteries for the rouleaus, think of 3 buckets of water. They're different buckets, different bucket sizes. You're pouring them all out at the same time because they're in series, but one of them is going to run empty before the others. It doesn't matter, how new or old the buckets are or anything like that. They're 3 different size buckets, and they'll always charge differently. That's what people are saying. It's not the position in the mod. It's not the one near the atomizer that discharges first. They're all discharged identically, but there's different amounts of capacity in each battery and other different things that affect what voltage it ends up as. That's okay. What's not okay is if you see that voltage difference in the batteries growing. If you've got a 0.1 difference most of the time, 0.08, 0.1, well, that's okay. But if it goes to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, one or more of your batteries just reach the end of its life and is starting to fail. That can eventually become a problem, eventually. But one of them has to drop below 2.0 volts before it starts getting damaged. And at the charge end, if you're charging externally, it's not going above 4.2, so that's okay. So it's hard. Married batteries is not a huge problem. It's something to be aware of. And I'm in the middle of testing now. That's some beeping you might hear once in a while back there. I've got 12 batteries on 50 cycles a week, just cycling 24 hours a day. And so one of these months will be done. But it's if you're charging internally in USB where you have big problems, because you're not bringing it back up to 4.2 volts independently. You're bringing all of them up to 12.6 volts. And because they start off all of the different voltage when they discharge, they're all going to charge up to a different voltage. It'll equal 12.6, but the one that has less capacity than the others is going to reach 4.2 right away because it's a smaller battery inside. Now, the other ones aren't full yet. We're not at 12.6 volts. So that little battery is going to go up to 4.3, 4.4, 4.5 volts before the others all add up to 12.6. That's trouble because it hits 5 volts and you can go into thermal runaway overcharging a battery. It's not easy, but it can happen. Don't charge by USB. It's okay occasionally. This takes a lot of cycles for this kind of thing to build up. Even if you charge by USB all week long, just put it on the charger over the weekend and bring them all back up to 4.2 once a week. That's okay because now you're rematching the battery, rebalancing. That's the term I think of the batteries again. But never just leave them in there all the time. LiPos don't balance the batteries, and they're charged as a pack. Some of them aren't, but they're matched. Actually matched, typically before they're put into a pack, so they can forestall that unbalancing and danger for a longer time than we can with 18650s.
Okay, interesting.
I have kind of a follow-up question to that. Last time we talked, I actually asked, but that video has been taken down, is how much difference, say you get batteries all from one batch, right? Is there still going to be considerable differences between cells in one batch?
You'll get...
even if I'm going to marry batteries together, I mean, is that even theoretically possible? Yeah,
the marriage... it will mean nothing in terms of their matching, but let's say you take the extra step of getting from the same batch, like my clients would do. They would need 50,000 batteries. They sure as hell are going to make sure they're from the same batch. It saves money on the battery management system because it can assume pre-matched or better matched batteries than a worst case scenario. But that's just a financial decision. For us, let's say they're all from the same batch. If they've all been stored the same way, all these other little gotchas, there's roughly maybe 1 to 2% difference at the most in capacity, a couple % difference in internal resistance, and dozens of % difference in the leakage current. And the leakage current only matters if you're using the batteries once every couple of months, because they have to sit around for a couple of months, and that tiny bit of leakage difference to start bringing one down below the other. So let's stick just to internal resistance. That only matters when you're actually vaping. So let's go with capacity. You're matched within a couple of %. So even if you have different batches and different ages, you're still within a few %, worst case.
Okay.
So the marrying, even with random batteries, just isn't that much of a concern. I mean, I didn't even start with trying to match the batteries for my married battery testing, and I'm almost 200 cycles in on 8 different 3 battery setups, 4 triples of 25 Rs, 4 triples of HG2s, randomly picked, lightly used to brand new over a 1.5 year spread from multiple sources, including donated batteries and ones that I had. And I think the biggest difference I saw was less than 1/10 of a volt for all of them except one pack, and I saw a 0.3 volt difference.
Okay.
And I'm bringing them down to 2.8 volts. If you're only bringing them down to like 3.2 volts or something like that, higher up the cutoff for most typical mods, or especially for mech users, you're going to see less of a difference. The difference grows as you go down in voltage. So back to your original question, I think you're not going to see much, and it's not too much of a concern. This is why I've never come out and said to the community, "Oh, you need to buy from the same batch or something." It just doesn't matter that much.
Because all cells, I mean, I think a lot of the reason I ask is I think a lot of people don't realize is that from cell to cell there are differences. I mean,
every single one
is unique.
It's a small difference, but every cell is unique. And this is what causes the differences when you put them back on the charger. Everyone thinks it's because it was in a certain position in the mod or something like that. If it's a badly designed mod, if the voltage tap, the little wire that reads the voltage, has a flaw at the other end in the circuit, it could slowly discharge the battery through, like it might sit there reading the voltage 24 hours a day or something. That'll drain the battery. But assuming a remotely decently designed mod and a functioning mod, it doesn't matter position or anything. It's just the natural difference between batteries. And the lower you go in voltage, the more that difference makes itself known. The voltage difference between batteries at 2.5 volts might be 0.3. But if you discharge it down to 3.2 volts, it might only be like 0.03 volt difference between the batteries. So that can add to a lot of confusion too and things that are going on with stuff. But expect every battery to be different voltage when you put them back on the charger. And something that's also really important before I put everyone to sleep. Chargers are a terrible way to check the voltage of the battery. Terrible way. They're not very accurate. Every bay is going to read a different voltage, and they may not be consistent in their voltage reading. I was easily seeing 0.08 to 0.1 volt inaccuracy in them. If they're consistent, if every bay always read 0.08 off or something, that's okay, because you can put the batteries in anywhere. It'll always be off a certain amount, but the difference between them, you'll know. So if you are using your charger voltage readout to determine where those batteries are, you can get a lot of bad results. And on top of that, the charger doesn't tell you the battery voltage. It tells you the charging voltage. And that is the battery voltage plus the voltage rise of the battery from the internal resistance. When you use a battery, the voltage sags. Well, every time you charge a battery, the voltage rises. And that changes depending on the internal resistance. So you've got the inaccuracy of the charger to bay differences, and a voltage rise on the battery that's dependent on the internal resistance of the battery, which is different for every battery. So chargers are an awful way. Even a $5 multimeter from Harbor Freight will be 10 times more accurate than your battery voltage readout. For gross readouts, it's fine. No one needs to buy a multimeter. It's okay. But don't say, like, oh my God, one of my batteries is 0.02 off from the other. That may not even exist. In fact, it may be 0.02 in the other direction instead of the direction it's in. Done.
along those same lines, I mean, this question is one that you've definitely answered before, but I think that there may be people that are watching that could use this information. Could you just briefly talk about battery life?
In terms of like overall number of cycles?
I mean, how to just battery care, how to take care of your battery.
Okay.
How long can you expect them to last?
Yeah,
if you
I'll use the
take
term
care of
cycle life to differentiate from what I call battery life, which is a runtime.
Right, not runtime, but how
actual
how to
cycle
take
life.
care, how to take care of them.
Charge discharge cycles is just for everyone out there. When I say cycle life, a cycle is, and importantly, equal to the capacity of the battery, charge and discharge. So if you have two half charges and discharges, two of those equals one cycle. You can't have a little charge discharge and call that a cycle. It has to be equal to the capacity of the battery. Temperature is the number one enemy of any battery. By a factor of 10 at least. It's the prime determinant of loss of performance. And also increase in danger, of course, because it has to reach a temperature before it vents or bursts, catches fire. Don't charge over 4.2, which means you don't charge inside a mod because you can't control what, you know, the whole thing gets charged to 8.4 or 12.6, but you can't control what each individual battery is charged to inside a mod. So external charging, 4.2 is okay. A lot of these chargers, particularly the older EVs, I have a Luke V4, 4.26 volts. That gives you a tiny bit more capacity. A little rough on the battery though, but it's okay. The 4.6 is okay. The rated of 4.25, 26 is hundredth of a volt different from that, so I don't worry about that. If you have an option in your charger, and you can set it to 4.1, you can literally double the cycle life of your battery by going to 4.1 instead of 4.2. You're going to lose about 10% of your capacity, maybe a little more, but your payoff is, you know, maybe double life, maybe a lot more than that.
Wow.
You can go down to 2.5 volts without any concern, zero. There's no danger. They're rated to do that every single cycle in the data sheet. 2.0 is the point where you're concerned. If you pull something out of a closet, you throw it in the charger, your charger is one that can handle it, and says, oh, 1.8 volts. Just recycle that battery. Don't use it. In between 2 and 2.5, you're accelerating the wear on the battery, but it's okay. Just charge it up slowly, use it. So temperature, voltage, you can stop at anything. Batteries last a little bit longer if you're like 3.2 volts. That's kind of where I recommend, stay above 3. Don't let them get hot all the time, but if you're getting a battery hot, it's probably because you need whatever this battery is giving you, the performance or stuff. Number of cycles and overall battery life. I do have a blog entry, and there's a link in on extending battery life. I don't remember all the different points now, but so much of it is let it cool for 10 minutes before you charge it. You really don't have to let it cool much after charging. It shouldn't be getting that hot. Charge it maybe 1 amp. If you charge it 2 amps, you can lose a little battery life. Half an amp, you might increase life a little bit, but you're waiting a lot longer to charge. 1 amp for me is a sweet spot. If you've got 18350s or the ultra high capacity, generally ultra high capacity batteries, the Panasonics typically and the Sanyos, half an amp. You'll feel them get warm. Overall guidelines, what we would probably call very warm is about the warmest you want to get them. Above that, 45 degrees Celsius is where aging accelerates. If you can't hold it in a closed fist for 30 seconds, that's about 60 Celsius. It's too damn hot. Maybe get a different battery. Or slow down on the pulls a little bit on the Mac or whatever's getting them that hot. Wraps and stuff we covered. Temperature we covered. I think that's most of it. The rest would be check my Mooch Facebook page for the link on extending battery life and how to know when to retire a battery. For anything I forgot, will be in those posts.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Well, that's it too. I mean, you can go through a lot of things to extend battery life, but at what cost and convenience? You know, like for me, I charge at 3 amps. I charge my VTC 5As at 6 amps. For me, I'll buy 1 extra set of batteries every couple of years and enjoy faster charging and all these things the whole time until I have to buy one extra set. I still haven't replaced anything from when I started vaping about 20 plus months ago. Maybe sometime next year, I'll finally have to start replacing them. But there's a real balance, or a real trade-off in convenience in doing things to extend the life of our batteries. Some are easy, stop 3.2 volts or something. But if you've got a VT75 or something, a 75 mod, and you can't get below 50% on it because you're vaping at 75 watts, go into eScribe, set your freaking cutoff to 2.8 volts, and don't worry about it. It's okay. That's temporary voltage sag down to 2.8 volts. It'll come back up to 3.2 volts when you're done. And wow, now you can actually vape at 75 watts, maybe even with 26650s, but certainly with 18650s, the higher capacity ones that may have not been a great choice at 75 watts if you're chain vaping. So look into maybe giving up some of the convenience, some of what you want to do to retain some of the convenience, namely buying batteries a little more often, but having a lot more convenience out of it. But that's purely personal choice, and I'm never going to judge anybody for saying, oh no, I want my batteries to last 4 years. You do it. That 4 years is easily attainable as a vapor out of batteries, but it's going to be inconvenient to get there.
I didn't realize you were using a manual typewriter for your computer.
Yeah. that little Smith Corona action they are going.
I have a mechanical keyboard, and I try and keep it muted.
You can actually hear the ding of the spring.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's loud, so usually I try and mute when I'm typing. But
What kind of switches you got? MX Blues?
What?
Do you know what kind of switches you got in your keyboard there?
Oh no, because it was made in 1984.
Awesome. Even better.
It's IBM Springs.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The date on the bottom of my keyboard is 1984.
I think they're called railroad springs.
Those are fucking awesome keyboards. Seriously.
Yeah, you're going to have it for another 20 years.
Yeah, totally.
As a matter of fact, I'll show you the cord.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Because I have a mechanical keyboard, but it's a piece of shit new one. Those old IBM ones, they're worth. I would pay $50 for those.
Yeah. I think they sell for upwards of $150 on eBay.
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't pay $50 for them. I'm not gonna pay more than that.
No. I think I bought mine at a garage sale for $5.
Yeah, totally.
That's worth.
Let me has a question. He says he wants to hear about the 2700, like 2700.
Yeah,
20,700. Okay, yeah.
Quite a few times actually.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's interesting because there's a lot of benefits to adding a couple of millimeters to the diameter of a battery. Because when you think about it, 2 millimeter diameter change over 65 millimeter, 70 millimeter battery, that's a lot of extra capacity or a lot lower resistance. Because now we get big, fat chunks of metal and the foil and stuff that's inside there carrying all the current. The Sanyo 2700B, when I say 2700, it's 20,700. The B is their version of what we call an energy cell capacity, runtime, not current rating. But it was, what was it? 40% more capacity. It almost equaled an HG2 in voltage, but it was like 40% more capacity. And all you got is a couple extra millimeter. You can fit this thing in most mods with a custom sled. The 2700A, which I should be testing in about a week or so, probably before Christmas, that's the power cell. That's the one that's 30 amp rated, and I forgot the capacity on it because I didn't think I was going to be getting any samples for a while, but one of the vendors is being awesome enough to send me a set, and I'll list where you'll be able to get them when I do the test. That I'm very interested in because essentially that'll now be 30 amps over 3,000 mAh. That'll easily be the highest performance cell that we have available in a very convenient form factor, the one we're all used to. And we have the contacts for a sled. We have the metal contacts that are available, a Keystone and others, that kind of crap contacts, but we use them. And the 3D print out sleds now to be able to use in boxes. It opens up a lot of opportunities, some very high power, essentially LiPo competitive boxes using cylindrical batteries. And there are more to come. There's the 2170s, 2170, and then the 2650s, 20650. These are all competing sizes and batteries, either from Musk, and Tesla's Panasonic factory, and from other manufacturers. I don't know where it's going to shake out, but I don't think it's going to replace the 18650, but it's going to offer us some wonderful opportunities there if we can get our hands on a steady supply.
Did I hear you say they're Sanyos?
Yeah, the ones I tested were Sanyos, 20700B.
It's interesting.
So they offer, especially for the modders, the box modders. It's not that hard to take a tube with a thick wall and bore it out, 2 millimeter bigger inside diameter. Somebody can be prototyping this thing soon. And you got another 5 millimeters in length, but excuse me, it won't be hard to proto this in a mech. Sleds to put in something regulated or into a PWM box on there. So I'm hoping, after I do the 2700A, that there'll be some people who will pick one or two, especially since it'll be available from vendors in the United States. I think there's at least 2 I know of now. I don't want to say any names till stock is in and stuff like that. But 2 vendors in the U.S. will have these batteries. I think Encon already does in the Netherlands.
Since the last time we talked, were you able to track down who's making that 26650 iJoy battery? No hint. There's there's 4 big ones: ATL, BAK, Soshin, somebody else, in China who could be making it. BBC. These are all factories in China. It's not Samsung, it's only LG, Panasonic, or Sanyo. Don't know who makes it. I'm hoping, though, that more battery companies rewrap it. Aspire's got a new 26650 that I want to test. I'm hoping that's the iJoy cell. And because I'm not sure if Youngdalee New Energy Company, who makes their 18650s, makes the 26650. They're not on their website. I didn't think there were. Actually, I haven't checked in a long time. So at least if we can't find out who makes them, at least have them available from multiple sources, and because then we can shop by price, as opposed to being a bitch to $22.99 from iJoy or waiting months from I think somebody else has in a heaven gift or somebody, $12 or something like that. But inevitably, it's going to get cloned. They're going to be fakes, or they're going to swap cells or something. So we still have to stay on our toes. If I find a good cell, buy it that day before the fakes start coming out. We're seeing the HG2s are so badly counterfeited now. Those warnings are actually awesome, because if you get something with a warning, it's probably not a fake HG2, because they haven't retooled to have the fakes have that warning on them. So I'd say, this is the time to buy HG2s if you can get them with the warning on it. I think 30Qs are going to be counterfeited next, because they're the batteries that resemble that pretty closely. And it's going to happen. The VTC5A, it's going to get counterfeit because it's being so well received. Someone's going to pick up on that. That reminds me, I got a question for you. I did buy the 5As and I'm loving them, but
Cool.
This was the first time I had Sony's. I never had any of the VTC5s in the old days or anything, but I did notice that the wraps on these seem to be discoloring.
Oh, you get blotches?
Yeah, and I remember seeing people's in the old days that had the VTC5s that they would get blotches as well. Do you know what that is?
2 running theories. Because mine don't blotch, because I take the wraps off right away, because I need to attach the temperature sensor directly to the metal can, and I also need to examine with a loop all the tooling marks and everything, because I log that to be able to compare look for fakes. But one of them is it's the lubricant, the sizing, or the drawing lubricant, because the metal can of a battery is a flat disc. Mm-hmm. And they put it in the mold and they squeeze it and it squirts up around the die and you get a can, saw it off, put a top on it.
So
and
basically it has like
it's
machine
leftovers.
oil in there?
Yeah, but they probably use a water-based lubricant and it might just a little bit on there. And from the heat or oxidation, it grows dark. The other one is a little change in temperature could actually shrink the wrap tighter. And what you're seeing is just a difference in the surface tension or the degree of contact between the battery and the sleeve, because the sleeve itself has a matte texture to it, a satin texture to it.
Right.
Well, if that starts to smooth out from wear or from higher temperature, drawing it tight around the battery, you're going to get more contact area against the battery, and that would show up darker. You'll see it with a lot of things. When you touch it firmly to it, it looks a little bit darker with plastic or something like that. So it may not be any liquid under there at all. And I don't know anybody who's just opened it up and, looked and see, can I smear something off? Can I smell juice? Or is it, can I take a loop and see an area of slightly smoother inside wall? I'll eventually do that. I'll get some VTCs and just torch the hell out of them.
I have LGs that have the same discoloration.
Do you?
And
Okay.
Sonys, yeah.
Because I've only heard the Sonys so far.
I always wondered what that was.
It's not juice. Well, it can be juice, but it's not juice when it's a blotch in the middle of the battery with nothing leading to either end.
It's been, the LGs I had after like 6 months is when they developed the splotches.
Okay, I'd say it's not dangerous as long as it doesn't raise. As long as it's not raised, because it could be a rust spot. Juice might have gone into there. A rust spot can form, and now it's oxidizing. That weakens the wall of the battery. Batteries operate under pressure. What would puff a LiPo just pressurizes a cylindrical cell. It doesn't tell you it's stressed until the venting disc bursts, where a LiPo will puff and tell you, whoa, back off. So, if you've got a weakened point from a rust spot, and if it's raised up, it's getting eaten up, then don't use it. But if it's just discoloration, in my opinion, I don't think that's a problem. If it's a concern, rewrap, wipe it off with a slightly damp paper towel or something, dry it thoroughly, and then rewrap. If it doesn't happen again, then it's nothing to worry about.
Right. I just always thought I had battery AIDS.
Yeah.
Battery AIDS.
Ebola battery.
I take the life advice from that. If you're going to keister steep a battery when it's cold, Gizzard stew.
You always
Water-based lubricant.
Well, you always unwrap before you do that too.
Exactly. Gizzard stew.
Just makes things a lot easier.
I'm just going to take all my brand new Sonys and put camelbuck wraps on them.
Yeah, I ended up using. If I cannot pull my ears out, and I grabbed the wrong one. Let's see. There we go. There's some great colors out there for rewrapping.
Yeah, you like these moves?
There we go. I remember him. I didn't smoke camels, but I remember him. I was Reds, and I lung hit too. I never learned how to mouth the lung when I was smoking.
Yeah, me too.
I just did short lung hits. I had to learn how to mouth the lung when I started vaping, which was weird. And I think, was there another question, or did we answer that?
No, that was it.
We got most everything.
Good, I can vape then.
I think Fresh has one more question.
Do I?
I don't know. Do you?
So this is all theoretical, Mooch. This is so if I had a triple stacked Able mod, in theory, with possibly
32,650, right?
Yeah. And I was hitting it like a madman on a show with a battery expert on it. Do you have any safety advice for such a theoretical individual?
As long as I'm not in the same room, that's fine. No, it's. I mean, the worst you can do is vent a battery. They're not gonna go into runaway. So I wouldn't be worried at all. Just to see someone lift a 3 kilo mech mod would be kind of interesting. Well, I guess 18650s, that wouldn't be bad at all, but I was thinking of 32650. If you're going to do a triple stack mod, use 32650s.
You look like a fucking wizard with a fucking staff there, Yeti. This fucking thing is 6 feet long. It's ridiculous. It's like Gandalf and shit, man.
Yeah, Yeti, what build do you have in there?
It's a .03.
0.05.
No, come on. He might be all the way up at 0.1. Come on.
It's a 0.7.
Okay. So that's a toasty vape, but
Yeah, it's fairly safe.
yeah.
You can hear it when he pushes the button. It just kind of starts roaring at you.
Well, yeah.
A dull roar.
the jet engine sound, the exhaust coming out of the ventals. No, it's so much about mechs there are no hard and fast safe numbers or dangerous numbers. It's dangerous to vape. It's dangerous to use batteries. So it's all about degrees of it's shades of gray. And people, I get messages all the time about, holy shit, did you see Big Lou's latest thing? He talked about 0.06 builds and 0.04s, and I'm like, what are you worried about? He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He takes one hit and he puts that thing down for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
It's all about the average time you're using it. If you're at 2 seconds every, you can pull 60 amps out of those batteries on a hit. But if you're 2 seconds every 5 seconds, well, okay, you better be back down to if you've got a single battery mod, you better be up there at 0.5 ohms, 0.3 ohms, or something like that, because your battery's going to heat up a lot. So it's just not so many arguments online, so much drama is about this is safe, this is not, and I understand where you got to say things like 0.4 for dual series mech and 0.2 for or single battery mech, because you've got to tell the new vapors just a reasonable number to start with, but that doesn't become then. It was picked because it's a reasonable number of the vapors to start with and not get in trouble. It's not picked because of any real safety reason. You can vape 0.04 with a single battery. You can vape 0.04 with a series mech. Just understand duty cycle, how hard you're using it, and when you need to take a rest.
Yeti's eyes just straight lit up when you said that.
Your uncle
I was
just
imagining that.
But the thing is, with most of these batteries, and if you look at the pulse discharge curves, at about, I'm assuming high performance batteries, VTC4s and up, HD2C, VTC5A, VTC3s, batteries like that, at above about 50 amps, which is a lot, your return on investment, by dropping down, let's say you're at a 0.05, and you're like, well, I'm going to go to a 0.025 and get double the amps. No, your voltage has dropped so far, going from having the resistance might only give you 10% more current because your voltage has dropped so far. Your return on investment is very small. It's much, much better to pick a different wire, adjust your build, change your surface area, work with the heat flux, and work with your coils instead of just dropping resistance. It's a lot easier just to drop resistance. I know that. But your return on investment gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more current you're pulling out of there. And a lot of it starts, in that range that people talk about, 0.06, 0.07, going beyond that. It just doesn't get you much. For the damage you're doing to the battery, for the heat that's being generated, the power you're actually getting from it, it usually isn't worth it.
You want to talk about mechs in parallel? How that distributes the...
Good point. Yeah, it's parallel. Lots more drama online. And the thing is, both sides of the argument are exactly correct. Let's say we have 20 amp batteries. Two 20 amp batteries in parallel are 40 amps. Capability. Problem is, every battery has a different internal resistance, and the sled, the contacts can have different resistances, and the wiring might be different length from each sled or something like that. Those tiny differences mean the net result is those batteries are going to discharge at different current levels. Now I've seen to say take only don't double it, take 1.5 times. So two 20 amp batteries, you might call it 30 amps, and you don't go beyond that because if one of the batteries is charging a lot more than the other, only stopping at 30 amps will keep you from bumping past the limit for any one particular battery. I only see about, worst case, see, so many things with battery, it's shades of gray and stuff. That 1.5 times will cover just about anything. The worst designed piece of junk, hand-built mod, that's going to cover the differences on it. But for 99.9% of the vapors out there, it's way too conservative. The worst I've ever seen in the commercial sled was, and two very different age batteries, because an older battery has a higher internal resistance. It's going to offer less current. It's about 15%. So I would say take the 40 amps and deduct 15% from it. But I can never tell anybody really that, because I have to assume someone listening to me out there has got a janky ass piece of junk from 2006 that his brother's something built for him in the garage because he had an extra beer he gave him. So I have to advise, two 20 amp batteries in parallel, I'll call it 30 amps. Yeah. But for me, I would vape it at 34, 35 amps on there and not be worried. But what's beautiful is you can take the cover off and feel the batteries. If one's much hotter than the other, they're not sharing current equally and you're running too hard. Again, I always say, if it's more than very warm, they're aging faster. If you can't hold a battery in your hand for 30 seconds, it's too damn hot. And then it vents like another 80 degrees Celsius above that. So you can always check how hot they are getting and how well they are matched. In parallel, the internal resistance matters, not the capacity. Capacity differences between them don't matter for shit, because the one starts discharging faster than the other in voltage, the other one will take over, and they're always in balance. But the internal resistance will determine how hot they get, differences on them, and how well they share current. So I'd say, 50%, but probably less. If you find they're roughly the same temperature, then maybe, that 30 amp limit you gave yourself, bring it up to 35 amps and see if the temperatures are still fairly close to each other.
If you find when you unload your batteries out of a parallel mech and you put them on your charger and they seem to be very equal, does that mean that they've probably been discharging equally? Yeah.
In a parallel mech, by definition, they'll always be discharged equally, because as soon as the internal resistance will cause their voltages to do this. They'll always come back to the same point because they're in parallel. They're directly connected to each other. Mm-hmm. So they'll always, every single time, the internal resistance will do wham, but then they'll come back up to the same point, and even if you draw a different amount of currents from the two batteries, so they might come up like this, they will then equalize themselves because they're in parallel. So parallel batteries, that's why you don't have to rotate them. You don't have to do anything with parallel batteries. They will always balance themselves on there. And so if you put them on the charger and they're different voltages, that means your charger is creating that voltage difference because of inaccuracy in the charger. But wait a few minutes. If you discharge, let's say you take a huge 50 amp pull, out of these batteries and throw them in the charger right away. Well, they haven't had time to come back up and equalize. But if you wait a few minutes, let them equalize, you put them in the charger, and you get different readings, that's the charger problem. But you can do that with just one battery if you want to. You plop it in each, charge it up to something halfway, and then plop it in each bay and see what the voltage, see if there's any inaccuracy in your charger. Just essentially read the voltage in each one. And then you could write above it, put a piece of paper up there and say, minus 0.05 or something, telling you either, hey, subtract 0.05 or, hey, it reads 0.05 off. And now you can be more accurate voltage readings. Essentially, you're calibrating the readings on the charger that way.
Great. Does anybody have another question? If not, I do. Okay. No pun intended. What do you do when you unplug for a day?
Well, I'm still working. I'm still working. Well, I'm still working the last stall at the public restrooms at the north end of Times Square. Fagan keeps dropping by though and taking my stall. Wow. I'm a rock climber. I love that, and my hobby is my job. So a lot of times when I'm in the hobby mood, I'll just do research for some things. I enjoy cooking. For my girlfriend particularly, cooking for others is a real joy of mine. Dinner parties and things like that. So I'll often be experimenting and cooking. Cooking for myself is a waste of time. It's seeing someone's eyes roll back into their head when they try a dessert I've made that is a joy of mine. And I was a photographer for 6 years, fashion and some fine artwork. And so I enjoyed just walking around New York City with the cameras and taking pictures.
Excellent.
Oh, and well, obviously, you know, as much below as I can get out of the battery manufacturers and just sit around snorting cocaine and doing chatterbait stuff. But that's something else.
We finally have something in common.
Yeah.
Common ground.
Yeah, it's the hobbies. Yeah, it's mostly in better seasons. I've had some medical issues to deal with, but I'm an avid runner. I enjoy that. It's a great way to check out neighborhoods in New York City and just run to them. Just run through them. It's just zig up and down blocks. You can put on miles. Yeah, it's just checking out a neighborhood.
Sometimes you have to run through the neighborhood.
And when I was a kid, it was a lot more exciting when I was a kid. 1970s in New York was exciting. That was an exciting time. It's so preposterously safe now. You know, I'm running through the areas in Central Park where you could hear gunfire as a kid, and I'm running through there after dark because it's just gotten that much safer. It's probably very stupid of me. I don't do that a lot, but like Central Park at night, some other places. There's still forbidden areas, but certainly got much, much better with things. Giuliani did that right. That party did right.
Giuliani did crack down New York City. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, a lot of people got caught in the net that shouldn't have, but in the end, the crime rate did come down.
Yeah.
Let me get that. Would like to know, who is your favorite band?
My music tastes are a lot like my vaping taste. I don't know if I have a favorite, but Floyd is way the hell up there. Because I'm always in a different mood for different kind of music. So I often don't listen to like a whole album, but Dark Side of the Moon is still one I can listen to, you know, front to back. I enjoy.
You have to listen to Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
There you go. It's I like a lot of, you know, classic rock, a great deal, a lot of classical. That was, my father would do classical piano every single day for a couple hours, so I got exposed to that. A lot of early jazz, then soul, R&B, blues. I also enjoy a great deal. Some modern jazz, some modern vocal jazz, but I like the instrumental stuff more. Diana Krall. Oh, that's hot. And I kind of did bounce between a lot of different things. Occasionally, some pop and some stuff here, occasional songs here or there that I like from particular artists. But I often don't, it's funny, when I often don't listen to music if like I'm hanging out or cooking or anything like that. I don't listen to music. I listen to music when I work. And for then, I don't want stuff that I'm singing along with or really enjoying because I'm not working. I'm enjoying the music. So I'll often put on just classical or softer jazz or something like that and have this background, which I enjoy a lot when I'm doing technical research or something like that. And if I'm hanging out with friends or something like that, I'm not listening to music because I'm talking to them. When I'm running, never listen to music because you need to hear the car turning behind you or someone coming up behind you or something like that. So I bounce a lot between different things in music. The same thing for art. I love the masters, but then I'll go see a Pollock exhibit. You know, it's the individual pieces that kind of appeal to me more than maybe a genre. We're lucky to have all the museums here in New York, not all, but all the varieties of different types of art and some of the world leading museums too.
What happened, Travis?
Fucking chairs breaking. A bitch.
Look a little crooked there, buddy.
Yeah.
I agree, Mooch. I used to run too. I used to do 5 and 10Ks. I'm not a distance runner. But I used to do
I'm not
5
either.
and 10Ks.
10K is about my limit.
Yeah, that's my limit. I used to think that it would be cool to put some headphones in and run. You know, it's like, yeah, you know. I tried it once and it screwed everything up. My pace,
your pace would change for every song.
yeah, exactly. I got worn out the most wearing headphones.
Okay, which may be a good thing, actually. I just, at least in New York, especially for an individual woman running in New York, there's so many wearing headphones. And I'm like, oh, dude, if you're on the running path with 100 other people in Central Park, okay.
Yeah.
But you don't run through Central Park alone at night with your headphones on. No, don't do that. A lot of confidence in their safety. Who knows? Maybe it was Ronda Rousey, and I just didn't know. She had nothing to worry about running through Central Park at night with headphones
Right.
on. Excuse me.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Mooch, I want to thank you so much for coming by tonight.
Thanks for the time. It's always good to get out and attack some myths and spread the word on battery safety. It's something I'm passionate about, and it's always fun when someone says, "Hey, you said this, and I tried it and it worked." That's awesome.
Yeah.
If we can help the community through these videos, that's fantastic. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it was great having you. I guess we'll run around the room, and if anybody wants to give their little closing statement, I guess we'll start with Travis.
Okay, so yeah, you can find me over on YouTube. It's youtube.com/overdose vapes. We're also on Instagram at overdose vapes, on Twitter at overdose vapes. We have a really great Facebook group that a lot of the people here on the panel are a part of, and a great group of people. If you ever had any questions or anything, go over to Facebook, search for the Overdose Vapes group. It's a closed group. We keep it that way so that we can keep the riffraff out. But if you ask to join, one of the admins will let you in. And we have a really great time over there. And so, come watch us. We do a live show every Sunday. Yeti and Giz are both mainstays of that show. So if you ever want to watch them on a different show on Sunday night, come watch that. And that's about it. I'd love to have Mooch come on the show on some Sunday night if he's ever available and talk about stuff other than batteries. I think that would be really interesting.
There's other shit to talk about?
There is. So, I mean, we can throw in some battery questions just to make you comfortable, but.
Oh, okay.
But so that's me.
We'll talk guns.
Oh yeah.
Well, I used to be a competitive shooter, so.
See, now we're getting interesting. Now
I used to be a competitive collector.
Well, this was like 25 years ago, a long time ago. But
I used to get shot at running through neighborhoods in New York, so.
There we go. Maybe that was me.
Competitive shooting, indeed.
Yeah.
Robbie Vapes?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on, Giz, and thank you very much to our special guest, Battery Mooch, whose guides we use to this day. I mean, even the vape store I work at, we use your guides on a regular basis, depending on what batteries to bring in, how to treat them for each customer. Honestly, huge fan of yours and your work, and just
thanks,
thank you again for coming on.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Fresh?
What's happening? Mooch, thanks for coming on again, for taking the time to kind of do a redo from the last one. I really don't think we can get you on enough. I think you should be on every vape show to crack down on us when we start spracking off about nonsense.
Well, I'm hoping to get my channel up soon, but I've been saying that for an awfully long time, and address some things there. But I'm always happy to stop by and visit some of the other shows.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I hope folks realize just how invaluable you are to us here in the community. You really are one of the pillars that we have, and being able to go and ask Mooch a question or go look and see what Mooch has already done. It really is invaluable, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to stop by.
Thanks. It's with what the community was able to do for me in 2 weeks, what I couldn't do in how many years of smoking. I was only a light smoker, but I couldn't stop, and I hated being a bitch to a stick of burning leaves. It made me so mad, but I couldn't get off it. And you know, like so many people, I had so many reactions to the crap that you know I was prescribed, paying money for, to try to get off them. And you know, in less than 2 weeks, only because I went slow, because I had allergy issues with a couple of foods. So I'm like, whoa, I don't know what's in the flavoring, so let me start slow. I felt I could have stopped overnight. Vaping was perfect for me to get off those damn things. And man, this battery testing is the least I can do for the community. I feel just to say thanks for what I can enjoy for the rest of my life. If I can be able to vape, which is gear, the shit to buy, the flavors to try. I mean, whoa, it's so awesome. And so yeah, so it's the testing is just me from my heart saying thanks to the community.
Yeti?
I'd like to thank you, Mooch. I do. I appreciate it as well. This is a good one.
Thanks, man.
Anytime you come on, it's always informative and valuable information for everybody that's watching.
We got some advanced shit today. It was good.
Yeah.
It was nice. I don't know how many people we lost, but it was nice to talk.
Well, I mean, even sometimes going over the same old rehashed stuff. I know you probably get tired of it, but even on that chance that somebody's watching the replay, or even watching right now that's never seen it or never heard it, it's good that they hear it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always someone new, and I can always add something advanced mixed in with the stuff I've been saying before, and you just stop before the eyes roll back fully into their heads.
Absolutely. But thank you, Giz. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's awesome. Yeti's uncle at Instagrizzles, and also YetiWire.com. We got some new stuff coming out hopefully this week.
Cool. Off to go again.
Back to you, Giz.
All right.
Back to you, yes. Oh my God.
Am I muted?
No.
No.
Not for me.
All right. I just want to thank you, Mooch, 3 more times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think that I only have one question that we haven't covered tonight, and that would be, I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think about cat shit trebuchets.
I think the ROI for a cat shit trebuchet is worth it just to the sheer shock effect. Problem is the storage, dissemination, distribution of the cat shit. You've got to decide, are you going to start, what's important is, do you start dry and mix wet on site, or do you stay wet the whole time? And these are very important. I think a lot of people don't realize this, because you can go with powdered, you can go with chunk shit, you can, I only ask the trebuchet owners to consider this on there, because they're different approaches. And some things people don't consider is that some people try to start with cats and just do this shit fresh. Consistency and volume are not there. You need to go bulk. Either you've got cats and stuff, so, but we can do another show on that if you want.
I would like that.
Does it have to be cat shit? Can it be dog shit?
No, we can go on that. And what's nice is, in terms of the volume of food, for the dog, the volume of shit is greater than what you get. So the ROI is greater for dogs. Now, if you're willing to get into, the rhinos and the elephants, now we can start. Now, I understand that's a big leap for a lot. Most people stop at horses, I understand. But if you're willing to make the investment, the commitment for a defecated powered trebuchet, the rewards are there for you.
Excellent. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks. Get off your butts and vape. Bye.
What a hell of a way to end it.
You fuckers, that stuff is on video.